Please buy the new book by Erika Nicole Moore, Diabolical Tales of Woe. Diabolical Tales of Woe is a thrilling collection of short horror stories that leave you in an excited trepidation to see what will happen next. Prepare to face one horrific encounter after the next in this captivating novel. You can find this book on Amazon in the Kindle and paperback version. That is Diabolical Tales of Woe by Erika Nicole Moore.
I got to kick this thing off. Can I kick it off? 1, 2, 3, 4. Ladies and gentlemen, listen.
Conversate with Us Radio presents the Man Listen Show. We are the blackest radio show on the internet. We bring you our opinion on topics that affect the black community in an effort to enlighten, enrich, and empower every brother and sister that falls under the sound of our voice. We operate on a no-hating frequency, so be prepared for us to keep it 100% real and 100% black all the time. Please follow the show on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at Man Listen Show. You can also find the show on SoundCloud, YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play. Please share the show and make sure you use the hashtag ManListen. I'm your host, Mar B. Let me go ahead and introduce the crew. C, what's going on with you?
Hey, what's good?
Doing good. Erika, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good. And our boy Lab is not with us today. Lab's out saving the world. Shout out to Lab. We'll catch you next time, bro. On today's show, we want to talk about, are black men and women still at war? We did a show, I think it was it about a year and a half, y'all? A year and a half ago. Are black men and women still at war? And it is like one of our most popular shows to date. Go back and you look at the archives. You can go to SoundCloud and you can see that show right there got the most clicks out of all the content that we put out. But something came on the news today, and we felt that it was pertinent for us to talk about this topic. Loni Love made the news because of her comments about black men. Now, Loni Love is a comedian who is a co-host on The Reels, a popular daytime talk show. They were discussing Kevin Hart's new documentary, and his documentary covered how he cheated on his then pregnant wife. As they were discussing the topic, they also hit upon Joe Budden's response to the Kevin Hart documentary, where Joe Budden said he understood how a man working all the time could basically cheat. And they were addressing these comments on the show. The women on The Reels, they were discussing this, and this is when Loni Love decided to opine about black men in a way that really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. She said, I don't speak for the black community, but I do think that a lot of black men, they really don't know how to have true, faithful relationships. They think because they have money, because they have power, that they can treat women any kind of way, and that is something we need to work on. Now, a couple of her co-hosts try to block for her and say, nah, it goes across the board. All men of all races have this type of issue. And she jumped in and said, no, it's not across the board, because what is happening is that we are still dealing with the point of slavery. She said, and we are descendants of slavery, and because our families were broken up, we still do not have an idea of how to have togetherness because our families were broken up. Oh, by the way, y'all, Loni Love, the man that she's with, is a white man. So there's a lot to unpack here. It seems as if there's a growing divide between black men and black women that is being especially highlighted on social media. And I just think that it's time for us to revisit that topic and give our opinion, and hopefully we can help all the people that listen to the show so we can start to reverse this trend and make this notion that black men and black women are being divided is something that's false, and that black love is something that should be on the forefront, and we need to speak it into existence more often. So we'll go ahead and start off with Erika. You know, Erika, when I first saw this, I cringed. I couldn't believe that she was on national TV speaking ill of black men in that way. It made me think back to the show that we had with Christina Slaughter-Jones when she talked about trauma residue. And clearly, Loni Love was projecting trauma from past relationships that happened to her onto America through her platform on her show. Now, it may be her truth, but I think it's reckless to just talk about black men wholesale in this fashion. What were your thoughts when you looked at it and heard what she said?
I was offended for black men personally because I felt like she was attacking them unnecessarily. She could have very easily have said, the men that I have dated, regardless of race, have treated me in this type of way. And I feel like it goes back to them not having a family structure that taught them how to be men and leaders in a family, or a good role model, or a good husband, or something of that sort. But I felt like instead of being careful with her words and the point that she was trying to make, I feel like she just launched a full-scale attack against all black men and then blamed it on slavery. So in the same breath, she said that black men are terrible. It's the white man's fault, but I'm dating a white man. It's like nothing she said makes sense. It's like she's still confused. Like, back to the trauma residue. She needs to work through her own issues before she starts speaking on what she thinks to be the truth of what happened in those relationships. Because when you only look at one side, you miss out on the lesson that she might have was supposed to learn in those relationships. Perhaps she felt like because she had money too, that their money or position of power was used against her because she didn't have money or something like that. But it seemed like she was really upset specifically about men who have money and power using it over her, or using it as an excuse to treat women any kind of way. And that sounds like a very specific type of person that she may be choosing based on her own self-image, or, trauma residue or whatever. But I think that it was very negligent of her to just launch a full-scale attack against all black men and black marriages, period. Because that's not my experience. And that's not the experience of 90% of the black marriages that I know.
See, what do you think?
Arika nailed it, though, when she said that she's blaming slavery. So if white men have that much power on affecting black men, how they treat black women, decades later, why would you date a white man? Like, she's not making any sense. I always tell people, love who you love, do what you do, but don't disrespect black men or women while you're doing it to try to excuse the way you feel. Like, she's attracted to the white man. So just say that. Just say you ran into somebody you like, but leave black men out of it.
And I think you hit it right on the head. Too often, people who choose to date outside of the black community feel some sort of need to justify that by talking about something that happened to them as they were growing up, or relationships that they had in the past. You see several brothers who say, sisters just weren't checking for me. I wasn't the cool dude. I wasn't this. I was a nerd. And now that I got money, they want me. Now that I got a college degree, they want me. But Becky was checking for me the whole time. And oftentimes when I hear people make comments like that, I want to call BS, because I want to say, well, is it because they just weren't checking for you, or just because maybe you were going through your ugly duckling phase? Because most of us went through an ugly duckling phase, and some of us may still be going through it. So there may be some things that you need to address. There may be some things that you need to address that would make you more appealing to the crowd that you want. And just because you may get attention from someone that does not look like you, that does not mean that the people that look like you are bad or inherently evil or predisposed to being cheaters and disrespecting and violating women. Because my truth is, the men in my circle and for the most part, the men in my extended circle, we love black women. I mean, I can count on maybe 3 to 4 fingers brothers who did not marry a black woman, and not only did they marry them, but they honor them, they love them, and they respect them. So the whole let's throw black women under the bus because I want to date a white woman, we got to do away with that. The whole I want to dog out black men because the white man came suddenly and swept me off my feet. No, just say you want to be with a white man. That's all you got to do. Just say you want to be with a white man and let that be. Don't feel the need to justify it. That's it.
I think what you were saying about people maybe going through an ugly duckling phase, or there being other reasons why they weren't necessarily meeting people from their same race, is that I think that their approach styles are different. So in my experience, Black women tend to wait to be approached by men. We're not as forward about letting someone know that we are attracted to them. And then I think that white women know that if they want a Black man, they kind of have to be more aggressive about it, because you don't know if a white woman is interested in Black men. So she's got to pretty much make herself known as a white woman that dates Black men before people might feel comfortable pursuing them. So I think that their style might be a little more aggressive. So maybe they just overlooked people that were interested in them just because they are used to being pursued, as opposed to someone who is more aggressive.
I do agree with you that I think it starts early, and I think that Black women, as young women, are told, don't you be that fast little girl, right? Don't you be out there being fast with those little boys. Get your books, do the right things, don't get pregnant. And for the most part, that's drilled into our young Black women. When I see younger Black men, I do see that there is more of an assertive, aggressive approach from other races towards our young men. And I think that that's a dilemma, and I think it's just hard to be a Black woman. I think it's hard to be a young Black woman because there's so many critiques leveled at young Black women. Well, she's nappy headed, or she acts ghetto, or she does this, or she does that. And the people saying that don't realize that their little nappy headed son is just as ghetto acting, just as nappy headed, just as dusty, if not dustier, than the young Black girls who are trying to figure it out as well. So not only do we have people who are justifying their dating preferences by throwing Black people under the bus, we also have people who justify why their children don't date Black by throwing other people under the bus as well. So I think it really just goes back to us focusing on self-love, focusing on Black love. And if you want to stray, you stray. That's what you do. But what we can't have is those people who are creating chaos, which I think when Loni Love and people like this make these type of statements, they create chaos, they create tension, they create dissension in the Black community, because there are people who have been violated, there are people who have been hurt, and this gives them a chance to just spit out all of the hurt and pain that they have. It drops on all of us, and then the next thing you know, we're dealing with all this tension when really it's just a few individuals who have caused pain to certain individuals. So, I mean, we see this often, right? Especially on social media, like in our groups. When interracial dating and the lack of dating options for Black women come up, we see a good number of sisters who are jaded and bitter when it comes to Black men. But you also see those who are reasonable and say, yeah, I've been dogged by a brother or two or three, but I'm still riding hard for my brothers. I mean, why do you think the negativity is highlighted so much on social media and in these discussions, see?
I think for some reason the Black community is really starting to gravitate towards negativity, and that's why like all these reality shows with the men that cheat and have multiple women and multiple babies mamas are always, I mean, they get the storylines. They're on these reality shows for 3 or 4 years. And then you have people who are in a good marriage, you know, they got to almost like create the drama just in order to get signed on for a second season. I haven't got a chance to see the new show Hopeless in Love yet, but I recorded it. But I guess that's supposed to be about like unconventional relationships or marriages in the Black community. And I recorded a couple episodes, and one of them was Faith Evans on there. She kind of talked about her marriage between she and Biggie. Well, she really criticized the show. She said they really edited stuff. They, you know, they brought up like, you know, interviews she had from like, you know, 10 years ago that she didn't even think was going to be on there. And like wounds that basically she has already healed, a friendship she's already mended, like rehashing all that just to kind of get a lot going. I think that's the same thing we're seeing on social media. But something positive, you barely see it. Back in the day, you had a lot of older gentlemen, both white and Black, who had families on one side of the town and had a whole nother wife and family on the other side of town. It was never talked about. Like no one ever would have wanted to be the side chick. And nowadays, being a side chick is almost glorified. Like, they're the people that are getting the attention on social media. They are the ones that are getting in the reality shows and being signed on for 2 or 3 seasons. A lot has changed in the Black community, but I really don't know why.
I definitely think that there are people who are pushing this narrative, and I think that those people are not necessarily in the Black community. And of course, we know that there are people who are in charge of media that don't look like us, right? We talked about that on the last show when we talked about women in hip hop. We talked about the drug culture that's being pushed in the hip hop community. We talked about the stripper culture that's being pushed in the community. And we know that that only happens to us. You remember when Michael Jackson used the K word about Jewish people. They pulled the record. They made sure that it wouldn't be released. They went all in on Michael Jack because he said one word. It didn't matter the context. It didn't matter at all. You cannot say this word. And I think that we make a mistake by allowing people to promote and perpetuate this type of chaos in our community. So when you have the Shade Room, when you have World Star Hip Hop, when you have the reality shows that are promoted by Mona Scott Young, the Love and Hip Hops, those are problems. And we often talk about the white faces that are calling the shots, but we also got to talk about the Black faces that are putting these out. And these Black faces, they aren't ADOS. They aren't. But we constantly see that imagery pushed into our community, into our faces. So that's why I see when you talk about the glorification of the side piece, we hear it in the music. When you talk about the glorification of the stripper culture, you talk about these kids overdosing on drugs, they hear it in the music. They see it on the TV. So there has to be a point where we say we aren't going to allow this type of chaos to be put into the air, into the ether, and we're not going to share it. We're going to speak out against it, full-throated, and say, no, that's nonsense, and it has to come from both sides. It has to come from Black women. It has to come from Black men to say, no, you may want to stray outside the race to find love, but that does not mean that we are inherently dysfunctional because you couldn't find somebody that looks like you to love you in the way that you wanted to be loved.
That old adage, misery loves company, comes to mind when I think about stuff like that, because people today in general are just not happy with their lives. Most people are living check to check, working jobs they hate, and they're miserable. And then they look on TV and they see other people in miserable situations, or, they have money, so they're doing things that these people can't do, but the same drama and negativity and stuff that they see in their own day-to-day lives is there on the screen. So I think it makes them feel like it's okay to normalize that behavior instead of doing something about it. If we had a show that promoted couples going to therapy and working on their own personal traumas and then working on their relationship traumas, then that would force people to take a look at their situation and say, well, how am I contributing to the negativity in my own life, and what do I need to do to make myself a better person, so that way I can have better relationships with not just my spouse, but also with my children, so that they can learn how to love their spouse and their children in a more positive or beneficial way for the community overall, so that we learn not just have a successful marriage, but also be a successful person in our community. And so, like you said, when you have people like Loni Love saying that, oh, the Black men don't know how to do anything right, that overlooks all of the hard work that we see on a day-to-day basis. Black men who are mentoring our children, who are teachers, who are fathers, husbands, and who go out of their way to be those good examples. And I think it's disrespectful to them and to all the Black men who are not just succeeding at being great husbands and fathers, but who are trying and who are working on being better people and going to counseling so that they can improve, all because she had a bad relationship, which she was 50%, responsible for the demise of. So I think it's just unfortunate that people with a platform like hers would choose to abuse the opportunity to spread love about our black men and black women and decide to go the other way. But I think that Amanda girl is of the same fabric. I don't really like her. So that's just my sense.
Amanda Seals. Amanda Seals is last week they announced that she would be joining the show. And while Loni Love was spouting out this nonsense, you could see Amanda Seals with the histrionics and really acting dramatic as if, she was speaking a word while she was saying this. And really what should have happened was she should have been saying, no, girl, that's not true. You are generalizing, and you are generalizing in a dangerous way, because the reality is whenever we allow negative stereotypes to be perpetuated about any of us, it makes it more dangerous for us to exist as a people. Because if we promote the idea that black men aren't respecting their women, then it easily goes to they aren't respecting their women, they aren't raising their kids, and then you have these kids who are parentless, the black family is fractured, and it doesn't really matter because they're hopeless anyway, so it doesn't matter if their life is taken by a police officer. It doesn't matter if on their first mistake we throw them under the jail. It doesn't matter if this young sister is abused by somebody or violated by somebody who's outside of the race. It doesn't matter because they didn't stand a chance anyway. So we have to promote strong images of ourselves at all times. And when people push that, especially from within our ranks, I think we got to call them out and we got to say, no, that's nonsense. And you are definitely wrong. But I think the other thing that we need to call out, and I'm going to speak for, and I wish Lab was here, but I got to speak to the brothers. We do have to call out the few brothers who do wrong by our sisters. We got to call them out. I call them out all the time. If you are somebody who is wanting to throw black women under the bus to justify your choice in dating outside of the race, you're going to hear from me. As a 42-year-old man, if I see you as a brother who is not respecting black women with your actions and your deeds, you're going to hear it from me. Because I'll be honest with you, the bitter black women that we see on social media, on TV, the Loni Loves, the Amanda Seals, there was what did they call it? There was a patient zero. There was somebody that made them that way. And for those brothers who play games and lead these women on, you create this nonsense that we all have to try to navigate through because you didn't do right. You weren't honest with your deeds. So I think that we as black men do have to take some ownership in calling out those brothers who aren't being respectful, who aren't living in an honorable way, to make sure that we don't have these situations where we have Loni Love spouting this nonsense on the TV and creating problems for the whole black community, black men and black women included. So I really want us to call that out. And I know that in my crew, we're good at holding each other accountable. But I think, brothers, we need to see more of this. And I think that's something that we can do to make it to where our sisters are more comfortable. They feel more loved, admired, and held in high regard.
I agree with all of that, but at the same time, women have to have some self-accountability too. If you're 40 and you have ran into, 20 or 30 bad black men, like what kind of choices are you making? Like, are you looking for the same type of person? Are you looking at them based off the physical trait? What are you looking at? How are you missing the signs so early in the game that you keep running across so many men or black men that you aren't doing sisters right? But I have a really good friend. She's white and she's 40 and she's only dated white men her whole entire life. She often male bashes, saying she can't find a good man and she's trying and she talks really, really bad. But one thing I've never heard her say is white men aren't this, white men aren't that. Like, she leaves the white out of it. She just groups all men. And I think sisters got to do the same thing. If you've dated 30 black men versus this one white man, date 30 white men and then come back and tell us the same thing, that, you know, all 30 white men are good or all 30 black men are bad. That's what I don't like about people like her.
I'll be honest with you. As a black man, I've been done dirty. I've had a black woman hurt me real bad. Several of them. You know, cried to my mama, cried to my boys because how could she do this? She did me dirty. She did this, she did that. And you know what? You would never find me without a black woman on my arm. Because I know that it was those individuals who hurt me, not black women as a whole. So, brothers and sisters who are caught up on that, we got to get them up off of it. We got to get them out the paint, and we got to make sure that this notion, that the idea of black love is continued to be pushed into the ether so that we embrace it, we live it, we breathe it, and we embody it. And we got to make sure that our kids had that same idea.
Yeah, I usually say to people when they're complaining about how men aren't great or whoever, I remind them that you typically find people at the level that you are. So if you want to find a better caliber of person to date, then you personally need to level up. So if you keep meeting the same people and doing the same things, maybe going to the same bar every Thursday isn't what you need to be doing. Or maybe, you know what I mean, only eating at Applebee's for a happy hour on Thursdays or whatever. That's not how you're going to find your soulmate. So when you're so focused on leveling up and improving yourself and focusing on your goals, you tend to bump into other people who are just as focused and just as motivated. And that's when you start creating a circle of like-minded people that are light years apart from who you used to be and the drama and the child you. And then you start finding some quality people who are ready to build and grow. But if you're still playing, then you're going to find people that's still playing. It's not black men, it's not black women. That's just the environment that you choose to be in. So when you start moving different and leveling up and going to networking events instead of the bar, or going to alumni events or wine tours or other things that are different from what you're used to doing, then you meet people that are different than you're used to meeting, and you get invited to other places that are different from what you're used to doing. And that's how you level up and find somebody else that's, you know, a better caliber person for you, or potentially a better caliber person for you, because the more you mature, the more the people that you date or the more the people that you're around tend to mature. And then you're more likely to find somebody who's ready to settle down and get married and not play games, which most people are just playing games. You can't be working a part-time job and partying 90% of the day, but you want a 6-figure husband with a house and a perfect credit score. Like, you have to be more realistic about what you're bringing to the table and what you're attracting as a person. If you don't have your life together, how do you expect to attract someone who has their life together?
I agree with you. The thing that I want us to take away from this discussion is that we are much stronger together than we are divided. Let's stop sharing the memes that perpetuate this notion. Let's make sure that we shout down those who seek out to divide us with their words, like Loni Love. And most importantly, let's choose to focus on the positive. My sisters, there are plenty of black men who love, respect, cherish, adore, and worship you. There is a divine plan, and you are not meant to be alone. If that plan calls for you to be with someone that's not melanated, then so be it. But I truly believe that the most powerful combination on this planet is a black man and a black woman. And brothers, we have an obligation. We have an obligation to our community to protect and cherish our women. We have an obligation to teach our young men that nothing looks better on your arm than a black woman. Nothing can make you shine brighter than having a black woman, and there is no greater love than the love that comes from a black woman. And nothing will give you the same type of reward and fulfillment that you get from raising and protecting a black family. It's time for us to hold each other accountable. It's time for us to step up and make sure that we do right by our sisters. When people spew nonsense about our women, we got to reject them harshly. When you see a brother dogging a sister out, correct them. I want you brothers to know that you get much further with a woman when you are honest about your intentions. Believe that. Let's hold each other accountable, and let's make sure that we continue to promote and live and believe in Black love. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up the show. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Man Listen Show. Make sure you subscribe to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, YouTube, basically everywhere you find your podcast. We'll holler at you next time. Peace.
Peace.
Bye.